Welcome, students of AoE 4, to my humble house of learning. Today we're talking about Jushi's legacy. Specifically, I will showcase an opening that enables you to transition into the fastest fast castle in the game right now, but also into a fast song Feudal Age all-in, which I will showcase in the next video on this channel. But before we start, this is not a beginner's build order. It is optimized to be as fast and efficient as possible and will require some fast micro and precise timing. So if you are up for that, let's talk about this opening and why I designed it this way. Now, first off, we will not start by chopping wood, which will make aging up at least 10 seconds faster, and that already equals 15 to 20 resources saved, depending on the landmark spot. Instead, we will instantly build a mill at the berries, then we send all of our sheep there, move the scout across the map, select the Imperial official and supervise the blueprint of the mill, and then we reselect the villagers and shift queue them onto the sheep. And now we move the sheep, once they have reached the mill itself, closer to the mill, like this, take one or two villagers and slaughter a sheep that we haven't shift queued onto, and sometimes the villagers will run around the mill for no reason. It just happens sometimes, I don't know when exactly. And then the villager from the TC is rallied onto the remaining sheep. After that, we rally onto gold. Now, because we didn't start by chopping wood, it follows that we do not build a village, right? But that is actually a good thing, because building a village takes 7.5 seconds longer than building a house, which is already another 5 resources. And instead, we obviously build a house. In fact, the second villager coming out, the first one on gold, will build a house and then a mining camp. And once they are done with that, the second villager will have just reached the gold mine, and so they start mining gold exactly at the same time. Now, since villages in Song Dynasty save 50 wood, whereas a house only saves 20 wood, even if we need to build 3 houses before we reach Song Dynasty in this build, we still save at least 10 resources overall, with the upside of reaching our milestones, Feudal Age, Castle Age and Song Dynasty, at least 15 seconds faster as well. Now, after those 2 are on gold, I recommend rallying onto the berries, because you want to rally to food now again. And I recommend the berries so that your sheep don't run out. Which obviously allows your scout to have a little bit more of an aggressive pattern, and gather more sheep and deny your opponent sheep, right? This scouting pattern that I'm doing here is quite risky. You can also choose to do a more conservative route, let's say going in this area for instance, but the important thing is that you are back home at 240, 245 at the latest, because you want to scout your opponent's base at 325-ish, right? Why we will talk about in a second. Now, your first Imperial officials tax collection happens at 205 when you have 10 villagers on food, 3 of which will be on berries. Let's go there and see that happening. The third one goes on the berries. The Imperial official takes the tax. And now I recommend taking those 3 villagers, dropping off all the food they have with them, and immediately moving them to the spot where you want your meditation gardens to be placed. And then we shift queue them onto the nearest straggler tree. Now, obviously, we take the 3 from the berries because Chinese and Jushi's legacy, the villagers gather more slowly from berries than from sheep. And that is why we don't want to gather there and not from the sheep, obviously. Now, in this case, the meditational gardens are actually placed pretty well for this build, because we have gold, we have food, which is the most important, and then some additional trees. But you should always make sure that you have the berries in it. If you can reach the gold, that's good, but stone or more wood is also fine. Aging up with 3 villagers instead of 1 or 2 actually lets you reach feudal age 38 seconds or 14 seconds faster, and that grants you between 13 to 30 resources versus going up with one villager, and 5 to 10 resources versus going up with 2 villagers respectively. Now the scout drops off at roughly 2:45 here. All the sheep get pushed closer to the mill, and then all these villagers will go onto the sheep as well. You now want to go to 10 on food, so you now start rallying onto the sheep instead of the berries. I will reshift my command in a second here. There we go. And your scout is rushing to the opponent's base at this point. And this is when you will have a decision to make. Once you reach the opponent's base, you have about 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds to find the opponent's landmark. Now, against some civilizations, you might always want to go one way or the other, castle or fast song. Against English or French, you may always want to go fast song because it's more defensive. You can make sure that you can defend against longbows or knights. But against someone like HRE or China, you may want to go fast castle every time. There are certainly matchups where it might depend on the age up of your opponent, on the landmark of your opponent. Now I just see the landmark here, and in this case I just make the decision to go fast castle anyway, which means that after my 10th villager on food, I do not shift onto the wood line with the wood that I have, but instead, like building a lumber camp right here, but instead I keep rallying onto food until I have 15 on food. You can obviously also choose to go fast castle every time, but in that case I would recommend not killing as many sheep, so that you still have the opportunity on the option to move those sheep back under your TC just to be safe and not get killed by knights, for instance, or longbows. So at 3:25, 3:30, you want to be at your opponent's base, you want to find the landmark, and against civilizations like Abbasid, Ayyubids, Byzantines, it may depend on the landmark that you see, whether or not you can go fast castle or should go fast castle. So you have about 15 seconds to find that out, which might not be enough every time, but even if one villager goes to food first and then you move them back onto wood, it's not that much of a difference in terms of timings. So if you were to go on wood now, you would reach song at around 450, and that means obviously having 2 spearmen and a hardened upgrade in queue when the first knight arrives, or you have 2 horsemen on the map versus longbows. And as I've said, I will have a video on that build order on this channel very soon, so stay tuned for that. Now, going fast castle, your 3 villagers are on the straggler tree, and they drop their second round of gathering wood at 4 minutes, and then they are moved to build a house, and then they move to gold. At the same time, you're still scouting your opponent's base, and you're rallying onto food. So now we have 12 on food and 5 on gold. Again, we rally until 15 on food. And our imperial official will gather collect tax at 440 and at 505 for the third and the fourth time. There it is, the fourth time, even before 440, 430 sometimes, depending on how many villages you have on wood, obviously, on food, obviously, and how close the sheep are as well. Obviously, those things can matter as well. Now we have 15 on food, and now we rally onto wood. You immediately build a lumber camp, and then we rally onto wood. And now, even before 520, we can build the landmark. And the reason these three are sleeping right now is because they will be moving to the landmark as well. So we built the landmark with the three villagers that have built the house, moved to the road, and now built the landmark. And we take 3 from food as well. This is because that way we actually reach a really nice villager split for the next step. And you will reach Castle Age at 6 minutes with this build order, and then you can instantly queue 2 Shaolin monks, and then continue making monks until you have like 4 or 5, and then obviously there's a decision to be made whether or not you want to make Shaolin monks the entire time or not. And depending on that, you have to rally differently, obviously. I'll get to that in a second. At 6 minutes, you can also gather, even before 6 minutes, you can gather, collect tax with the IO again. All this time, you are rallying to wood. Now, the good thing with this split, having 12 on food, 2 on gold, and then rallying. Oh, by the way, all the villagers that build the landmark go to food afterwards. And I like to just put them on berries. They shouldn't stay there for very long, because we will use 3 of those villagers to go and complete our final step, which is going Song Dynasty very quick, very soon. So Imperial Official drops off again. We still rally onto wood until we have at least 7 on wood. And in very few seconds, we will already be able to drop the final landmark for this build order. A Shaolin monk is already moving out to the farthest relic. You can obviously also choose to be a little bit more conservative here and go for the nearest relics first. Now, those 3 villagers that I've talked about that were on the berries now build the Jiangyang Tower. And as you can see, like 620, 625 is the fastest you can do it, whilst still rallying on wood. And this will allow you can now make your third monk, and you can still have enough food to rally villagers. And even once you have 7 here, you can actually get an Imperial Official to supervise the wood as well, which is obviously efficient as well. Once you have 6, your Imperial Official is basically your 7th villager. If you have 7, you get even more than a villager worth out from the Imperial Official. Now, going up with 3 here makes it so that you are up at roughly 730, maybe even a little faster, and then you can immediately build a stable, a barracks, depending on what you want to go for. In this case, I'm building a stable. I could have started that even a little faster, and then obviously you don't want to do it before the Jiangyang Tower is finished, because every military building you build will spawn a corresponding unit from this landmark. Now, from here, you are basically done with the build order, and you can now decide what you want to do. As I've said, I am building an Imperial official from the town center, and after that I can decide where to rally to. If I want to continuously build Shaolin monks and units from the stable or from the barracks or whatever, spearmen or horsemen or knights in this case, it depends what I need to do in terms of villagers. If I want to build Shaolin monks consistently, I should probably go up to 20 on the supervised food, because Shaolin monks are very expensive. You can now go obviously take all the sacred sites and play more aggressively, raiding with the knights, or you just choose to be defensive, get your farm transition going, and you know, basically set up for mid to late castle, and you know, getting nest of bees and stuff like that. Obviously adding a blacksmith. I've also already gotten wheelbarrow. I should be getting double broadaxe. I could have gotten that much earlier as well. Horticulture or survival techniques, depending on, you know, going onto which food source I will go next, right? If I want to go into a farm transition, obviously horticulture is better, but I can also go and get survival techniques. Okay, so thank you for considering this build order. If you have any questions or suggestions, please comment below. And if you have any ideas on how to optimize this build even further, please let me know, because learning is what we do here after all. So thank you again, and class dismissed.